about
Good
that.
practice, everybody.
I was thinking,
Practice.
oh,
All right,
okay.
call the meeting to order again. Roll call. Council Jovins, President. Council Ryan.
Present.
Council Control is absent. Citizen member Dye will be delayed. And citizen member Christo is excused. Again, Councilor Marquetti will sit in. So, again, Bay Path budget.
Okay.
I'll just do it for the record. Review the fiscal year 2023 Bay Path Regional Vocational High School budget in the amount of $1,268,861. Entertain a motion to vote to submit to council as presented.
So moved.
There we go. There we go.
Okay, so
Take two.
I'm Irene Poole. I'm the new business manager. I took over for Dean Yakabuchi, who retired last September. So I've been there since then.
Okay.
So here we are, just to let you know what we're up to, up there on the hill.
Up on the hill, yep.
Yep, so, this budget is based on the original governor's budget, what they call House 1. There've already been some changes to it. Who knows what the final version will look like, but that's what we have to go on when we do our budget. Hopefully, we won't have to make any changes. I don't think so, and if we do, I think they'll be in the right direction, which means you'll owe us a little bit less. So, based on the best estimates on Chapter 70 funding for the schools and Chapter 71 funding for the transportation, we are expecting to have an increase of Chapter 70 funding of $1.3 million. I am going to use round numbers rather than sit here and read $1,307,141. So our total for fiscal year 2023 is $12.9 million. And as I said, that is a $1.3 million increase from the last year. One thing we heard from a lot of towns is, wow, why such a big increase? What did you do right? Well, what we did right was we're a vocational school. The state has actually increased the funding to all of the vocational schools. So that's what we did. Our proposed Chapter 71 funding, on the other hand, is down $243,000. We're expecting $809,000. I do think that will ultimately go up, but we have based our budget again on the estimate we were given from the governor's House 1 budget. They're preliminary estimates.
And Chapter 71 is just transportation, is that what that is?
That's correct.
Regional.
The regional transportation. Okay, so what impact is that on Bay Path? My next slide would just show you what that is. The minimum contribution for all of the districts combined in fiscal year 2022 was $9.8 million. It's basically $10 million for this fiscal year, which is an increase of $144.5 thousand. So very minimal increase, which is nice, and you'll see that as we get more into the weeds. Let's make sure we're all in. Oops, why is this not moving like it should? Or am I ahead of myself? Nope, I'm here. Okay. Nope, hold on. Sorry, guys. I just want to keep this in the same place, so I'm always. Oops, hard to do when I'm looking at it backwards. Sorry if you can't see it very well.
That's fine.
So,
Nora has some
Okay.
handouts for us. So
Okay.
Hold on. We'll catch up to you here.
yeah.
All right. So this is the new one?
And I am on slide 4. Okay.
Nora, can I have one more for Jim Dyer when he gets here, please? Thanks.
Not that anyone in the audience can see it, but I'll turn this way. Okay, so for fiscal year 23, our total budget that we will be assessing to the member towns is $25,899,604. That one I did read in its entirety. Do note that the member town assessments are at the minimum. We are not asking for anything above the minimum required contribution or, net school spending. The budget does include debt service assessment of $1,561,753. For those of you new to this, Bay Path underwent a major renovation back in 2015, and we're going to be paying for that as I believe over 30 years. Okay, so nice small number each year, but it's going to be a while. Good news is our sewer assessment's paid off after this year. The operational budget does not require funds above the minimum contributions. The member assessments, okay, so out of that $26 million budget, members will be paying $12,090,417. So even though the assessments are at the minimum, it's important to note that the minimum contribution levels did collectively increase $144.5 thousand. And the member town's transportation assessment has been reduced from what it might have been by $234,995, reflecting the use of the Regional Transportation Reimbursement Fund. So for those of you unfamiliar with that, a couple of years ago, because of COVID and all of a sudden we were getting more money in transportation than we needed, we established the reimbursement fund, allowing us to carry that money over into the next year and use it to reduce your yearly assessment. Where I mentioned earlier that we're hoping the final budget version has more money than we're counting on, usually that transportation number does go up. That allows us to put money into the reimbursement fund, and you get it back next year in the form of a lower assessment. So that's what you'll see reflected here. So financial highlights. Our total Chapter 70 revenue is, we're hoping, $12.9 million. Our school choice assessment is going down from what it had been previously to $179,000. Our Chapter 71 busing aid will be $109,000. Our sewer betterment fee is $30,750, and as I mentioned, this will be the last year we have to pay that. It will be paid off. So we'll be happy to see that in fiscal year '24. Yes?
I think your busing is 809.
What did I say?
109.
Oh, sorry about that. Okay. Yep. I
So-
just tripped over my words.
Question on the school choice assessment. Is that because you don't have a program that offers something, they send them to another vocational school?
No, what that particular one is if students, and it's actually primarily Southbridge students who are attending Tantascwa as middle school students, if they opt to remain at Tantascwa, but in Tantascwa's vocational program, we have to pay Tantascwa the tuition for that, because they would otherwise, in choosing a vocational program, have come to us. So they're considered our financial responsibility.
Makes sense.
Okay. Yeah. If students want to go, like for example, to one of the Aggie schools, or let's say they wanted to do robotics and they wanted to go to Worcester, and they were from Southbridge, you would be paying that directly.
Okay.
Okay. It's only our responsibility where they would have otherwise come to us, again, in the case primarily of middle school students at Tantascwa.
Do you know how many students that is?
I'm sorry, what?
Sorry, do you know how many students that is?
Oh, off the top of my head, please don't quote me, I believe it's 14-ish. That number sticks in my head, so give or take.
Based on what the assessments are
Right.
for each, about 16 grand, that's right.
Yeah, that seems about correct. Okay. I could find out if you wanted, but
No,
don't happen to
approximate
know.
is fine.
No problem. And then last financial highlight, we do use $50,000 from our excess and deficiency, which you guys know is free cash, to continue funding our OPEB liability. We've been doing a great job on that. I think we're up to about $600,000. I think we're supposed to get to something like $13 million. So it'll be a while, but it keeps growing. The nice thing is we put in $50,000, but then over the course of the year, we're earning interest on the $600,000 that's in there. So eventually we'll get to where they want us to be. And at that time, we don't have to keep funding it, hopefully. We'll see how that goes. Okay, so this one's a little bit harder to see. If those of you back there, I apologize. There's not a chance you're going to see that, but I'll be able to read it. So again, I repeat that our Chapter 70 budget is $12.9 million. The school choice assessment is $178,000. The minimum contribution from all the member towns is $9,976,240. No assessment above the minimum, and then $50,000 transferred out of E&D for our OPEB. So my operational total is $22,741,274. The transportation budget, we're expecting $809,158 from the state in the form of the Chapter 71 reimbursement. We haven't put in for a transfer yet to the reimbursement fund, because that remains based on what they actually give us. And then we're assessing $521,674,000 to the member towns. I'll answer your question, yeah?
I'm just curious, does that take into account the projected rise in gas costs?
I'm sorry, what?
Does that take into account a projected rise in fuel costs?
Yes. Okay, because currently I'm going into the 4th year of a 5-year bus contract. Okay, so it is based on our expected cost for the coming year.
So how much are you estimating?
We're not, because there's no fuel escalation in the contract.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's
Now,
nice-
that may
that's
come
the nice
back
thing
to
about
bite me
housing
eventually,
services.
but for the moment, we're good.
Right.
The good news is that number one, the fuel prices have come back down a little bit, and there's a possibility that we're going to be cutting one bus, so we'll be running fewer buses. So First Student has been very responsive. As much as you're going to like any school bus vendor, they seem to be pretty good. We work very well with them, and there have been times, because we do run 5 of our own buses. Well, we run 3, we own 5, because there's something wrong with one of them at all times. So there have been times when we've needed a bus, because 3 of ours are in the bus yard, and they've always come through, and for no extra charge, they give us the bus, we provide the driver, and we get our routes done. So again, they're a very responsive vendor. And we are anticipating that we will have $234,995 from this year transferred into the reimbursement fund that we'll be using for FY23. And thus your assessment will only be, again, total for the 10 towns. You'll see your individual one in a couple of pages will be the $521,674. The debt service, as I mentioned, is $1,561,753. We are almost, but not quite, paying more in principal than interest. I'm hoping by FY24 that will be true. So my principal is $775,000. My interest is $786,000. And then for capital, again, that sewer betterment fee, one more year, $30,750. So my total budget that I'm assessing back to the towns is $25,899,604. The school choice, you'll notice, is out separate. That's because I don't assess the towns for it. It simply comes out of my Chapter 70. So it's kind of taken right off the top from the Chapter 70 money. So again, the bottom line, my budget is $25,899,604,000 net of the school choice. Anyone have any questions on that part? Make sure I'm not ignoring anybody. Okay, so highlights from our budget for the coming year. We do have new textbooks for social studies. It's part 2 of a 2-year plan. Science and 12 of our shop programs will be getting new textbooks, and of course any necessary replacements for things that are lost, etc. during the year. Supply and equipment accounts were adequately funded to account for inflation. So normally we tell everyone 2% increase. This year we told the shops we know 2% isn't going to cut it, and we did go 6 to 7% on our shop accounts, and we're hoping that will be sufficient. We'll see. So far it seems good. And then we do have several equipment upgrades for the shops. There will be some new equipment going into advanced manufacturing, auto body, auto tech, consumer-aided design, graphics, metal fabrication, and web programming and development. Additionally, for staffing, we're adding a full-time adjustment counselor. We've had one full-time adjustment counselor for all 1,200 students. That's a 1 to 1,200 ratio. That's kind of tough. So we're adding one, so it'll be 1 to 600.
I'm glad. I'm happy to hear about that.
Yeah. Certainly social emotional needs are there, and they have done nothing but increase, primarily because of the pandemic, and I'm sure other things as well. We are adding a full-time equivalent veterinary science teacher, so we'll now have 2 teachers in that program. For those of you who don't know, that program is housed right here in Southbridge on Route 69 heading into Charlton. We partnered with Second Chance Animal Shelters. So that program is housed there. We will now have 2 teachers. It will be a fully staffed, fully populated, I think is the word I want, program for students. Very popular, by the way, waiting list on that one. People love that. We're also going to add a full-time equivalent electronic shop teacher. We'd always had 2 teachers. Enrollment in that shop dropped for a couple of years, so we dropped to only 1 teacher, but it's back up. We had very successful exploratory. The shop is now full again, so in order to run that properly, we'll be adding another instructor back in. Wage increases for our union and non-union employees are part of the budget. And the health insurance rates, we had no increase. If you look at the line item for the health insurance, and I promise you, by the way, I'm not going through the budget line item by line item. If you have and you want to ask a question, please do, but I promise you I will not do that to you. So the increase is to allow for new enrollees. Okay, in fact,
What's your percentage of, is it 70-30?
mostly, except that any employees who were there prior to 2011, it's a 1585. So-
2011.
Right. So those employees, as they start to retire, they're no longer at 1585. So I forgot what the percentage is in terms of our workforce.
But now, currently, any employees since then?
Any new people coming on, it's 70-30. Okay, so the employees have to pay 30%, have to pay 30%, and the school is paying for 70%.
I was just wondering if I could ask if maybe you could just share with us, who were you with for your health insurance and how were you able to have no increase?
The $64,000 question. We are with a self-insured group called Hampshire County
Oh, yep.
Group Insurance Trust. So that's why. Yeah.
Okay.
That, and I believe that Dean Iacobucci gets the credit for that. He was the one that got the school into that, and it has been wonderful. A couple of years ago, we actually had a decrease in our rates.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah,
I remember voting on that budget. It was a cool budget.
yeah.
Sorry, is that open to non-schools as well?
It's only school and municipal. So a lot of water districts, a lot of fire departments, a lot of municipalities, a few schools.
That's all.
I don't know how open they are to growth for new members. I couldn't tell you. I'm not as familiar with.
Mr. Chair, if I could.
Yes.
I just wanted to address, Council Steves, we have tried to get in there and they did not accept us.
Well,
Yeah, they look.
Unfortunately.
They look at the loss record.
Yes, they do.
So so we're in a good place with that. So that's been very, very helpful. And the last of the budget highlights for student supports. We do have significant programming from the Student Opportunity Act, which was the additional money that the state was giving all of the schools. And again, increased social and emotional outreach and professional development. So it's not just about reaching the kids, it's about helping the teachers, learn how to identify certain things and how to deal with them, particular problems, red flags, things they want to watch for, and things to do in the classroom. Increased offerings for our MCAS preparation and remediation, and increased offerings to help students struggling in classes. One example of that is this week, for example, for 3 days this week, we were picking students up with the buses and bringing them to the school and allowing them to complete work that they had not completed in order to try to avoid failing their classes. So we had 54 students taking advantage of this opportunity. So we try to offer as many programs like that as we can. So freshman seat allocation. So what's going to happen next year? This is based on what they call capital population. That means from the census, how many students, school-age students, basically 5 to 18, live in your community. It doesn't matter whether they're homeschooled, they go to a charter school, they go to public schools, private schools, irrelevant. How many kids that age live here? Southbridge currently has 2,517 school-age children. That represents 14.23% of all the 10-member districts for Bay Path, which means you get 14.23% of our freshman seats. We had 330 freshman seats. You have 47 of them. I do not have the information with me as to, because I know the admissions process is currently rolling. I don't know if you have taken all of your 47 or not. I should have thought to ask Tracy that. So,
What do you mean taking? What do you mean by that?
So for example, let's say you have 47 seats available, but only 45 students applied.
Okay.
Okay, you would have, quote, 2 extra seats, which we then allocate to another town. Okay, that happens sometimes, not usually, but occasionally it does.
Usually it's the opposite, where Southbridge has a long waiting list, and
Right.
there's other towns, smaller towns,
Right.
that have
Right.
seats open, and Southbridge takes advantage
Yeah,
of those
so we get to
seats.
give you those
But those
extra
have been
seats.
changing in recent
Right.
years. We're seeing a lot more involvement from the smaller communities,
Yeah,
right?
well, because they're realizing what a great school we have.
Yeah.
So everybody wants their seats for the most part. So that's where Southbridge currently stands. The foundation enrollment, this is the enrollment for students that, are actually coming to the school. And that's what the budget is based on, for when the state decides how much money you have to spend. Last year, that was 202 students. Currently for FY 2022, that's 207 students. So you actually had a decrease, and that could be students who chose not to continue. It could simply be you had a larger senior class, a number of factors. But it represents a 2.4% decrease. And the town of Southbridge, again, it just shows it here. Your total enrollment actually also decreased by 51 students. You had 2,210 enrolled in the Southbridge Public Schools in '22, and you're projected to have 2,159 for '23. And again, we're looking at Bay Path going from 207 to 202.
So when you say Southbridge Public Schools, what happens if we have a student that goes to, say, Quabog?
Yep.
Is a Southbridge student goes to Quabog but wants to go to Bay Path? Where does that assessment go to? Does that go to Southbridge, or does it go to Warren, or how does that?
Well, if the student lives here,
yeah.
so they've been living in Southbridge, they were school choicing themselves into Quabog, but now they decide to come to Bay Path.
Right.
It's your student. You are financially responsible
But
for
does
them.
that foundation enrollment reflect that Quabog student, or is that just Southbridge
Yes,
Public
because
Schools?
they're not a Quabog student anymore.
No, but it,
Oh, I see. Here
here it says Southbridge Public Schools, but we have
right.
we have 15 kids that go to Quabog.
Okay, so let me
Where do they
think.
count?
I have to think about that for a second. So their school choice,
Right.
that would not be included, because the foundation enrollment is what they use to determine the amount of money you have to spend on your students, whereas school choice, I believe, is done completely separately.
Yeah.
You've kind of thrown me for loops. I actually know this. I don't believe they're part of that 2,159,
Right.
but don't quote me on that. I'd have to look it up to be sure. I don't want to steer you wrong.
But they do count towards the capital population too.
Yes, they absolutely count towards the capital population. The difference between capital population and foundation enrollment is whether or not you're financially responsible for them. So
Well,
a student,
ultimately, we're financially responsible because it either is
right,
through
well,
the Chapter
unless-
70 or
right.
school choice.
or
It's
for-
coming one way or another from the town of Southbridge.
Well, if they homeschool,
Yeah.
you're not financially responsible.
Right.
And if they go to a private school, for example, if you have a high school student going to St. John's, you're not financially
Right.
responsible for that student. So there are a couple where you're not financially responsible.
Did you ever come?
Yeah, a quick follow-up. Well, actually, so would we, I know this is the answer, but we're financially responsible for kids going to the Catholic school here, though?
No,
No.
We're not.
no, because
We don't
they,
pay for
they
that.
have chosen to not participate in the public schools.
Busing, transportation is a different issue.
Yeah.
Transportation is a whole different law,
Right,
in
that's
which we're
the-
required
right.
to provide that for them.
You are required to get them there.
And the other question I was going to ask is just kind of curiosity. I noticed looking through this foundation enrollment list, is that all of the largest towns are the ones that are all losing students.
I'm sorry, what?
I said it looks like from this list that the larger towns in the district are all the ones that are losing students, except for ours.
Yeah, I don't know.
Which I thought was interesting.
So let me, so that's, is that my next slide? Nope,
No,
it's
the
not
previous slide.
Okay, let me go back. Oops, sorry. Oops. Oh, here we go. Okay,
And by the way, I'm reading from my budget book. not-
okay, no
Oh.
problem. I just want to make sure I'm looking at the same thing that you're looking at. Well, actually, you and Charlton, oh, I see what you're saying, because you and Charlton are the two largest,
And Spencer.
and you've both had a loss. Spencer's rebound, they're a lot smaller. Actually, Dudley's bigger than Spencer in terms of sending, as is Webster, which is similar, Oxford. And then your small towns, North Brookfield, Paxton and Rutland. So the other fun one to look at, I'll get to later, shows you the population changes in the towns. And there's a very interesting thing there that I'll point out. So for the town of Southbridge, so your required contribution is $9,200,000. This is for your entire, by the way, district, not just for Bay Path. $9,236,314 was for FY22. They used a municipal revenue growth factor of 3.65, and that does vary by town. Okay, this is the one they use for Southbridge. So your preliminary required local contribution is $9,573,439. You don't have any added increment, and so that's going to be your FY23 required local contribution. Your total foundation budget down here is $38,580,547, of which $34,733,983 is for the Southbridge Public Schools, and $3,846,565 is for Bay Path. Now, this is not your net amount. This includes the Chapter 70 money. And going on to the next page, now we get to the fun part. Okay, so your required contribution at $954,493 for Bay Path, $8,618,946 is what stays, for your district schools. We represent, as a percentage, 9.97%. So we're down slightly. Last year, or the current year, we were 10.36%. So anyone have any questions on that part? Okay. And this is the one that I said was interesting. It's called the School Attending Report. And we just put this in there to show people, going back to 2013, the 10-member districts had 19,447 students. Today, we have 17,687. That's almost a 2,000 student drop. 539 of that was just in last year. So I suspect that some of that is pandemic related, though certainly the trend has been downward, since 2013. So again, this is just more for point of interest than anything else. The statement of the assessments based on the governor's budget. This shows you all of the towns. And the very first line is your minimum contribution, and I'm going to show you this in more detail in a moment. But again, that $954,493. The population you have, oops, I'm sorry, that was good. Let's go back. So you have 202 students in the school. That is used to determine your transportation assessment, actual students in the school. So that represents 16.82% of the current population, 1,200. So you're going to be assessed $87,742 for your transportation. Now, the capital cost is done based on your capital population, the number of students that could be attending public schools. That number is 2,517. That represents 14.23% of the total capital population. That's used to calculate your debt service, $222,250, and the capital improvement, $4,376. Your total assessment for the year, your required minimum contribution, your transportation, your building capital, and your sewer capital, $1,268,861. And again, you get to see what everybody else's share is as well. And then I break it down. Again, this time I compare it this year to last year. You'll notice your minimum contribution is down a little bit. That's because you're down by 5 students. So you go from 957,000 to 954. The transportation actually is going up. The reason for that is because we're getting less back from the state. Okay, so that's the bottom line there. The debt service, of course, is relatively stable. It's gone up a little bit, and the capital improvement hasn't changed a whole lot. So there's a 2.99% increase in your total assessment from this current year to the coming year. Any questions there? Okay. And that's it. I say thank you for your continued support of Bay Path. Oh, and for those of you who don't know, our restaurant is now open again. So those of you who want to come up and enjoy a fabulous lunch, and yes, I gained the infamous Bay Path 15 when I started. because I eat the restaurant food far too often. And the cosmetology shop has also reopened. So if you want to call and make an appointment with our cosmetology shop. And I believe they've been open throughout the pandemic because you could do it touchless. The auto shop, auto body and auto tech, and as is our graphics department. So just give us a plug since I'm here. Anyone have any questions for me?
I just was looking at it, I was amazed that people come all the way from Rutland
Yeah.
to go to school.
Well, when the state did it, that's what seemed to make sense. The funny thing is, if you just do a drive, if you just get in your car and drive from here to Rutland or from Bay Path to Rutland, it's really not that bad. Now, if you're that first kid on the bus in the morning,
That's bad.
yeah,
You're on there for an hour and a half, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's not fun.
Either way.
But it's interesting in terms of an actual, if you just look at it as, quote, the eagle flies, it doesn't look so bad. So I don't know if somebody just didn't think this through when they put the districts together. But then again, if you think where the other schools are, where else would Rutland go? You know.
But that doesn't count towards the transportation costs at all,
Um,
the distance?
Not really, because a lot of your cost is the bus itself, you know, the capital cost of the bus, the insurance, your drivers, okay? And it's pretty much the same amount of time, you know, for all the drivers. They're all X number of hours in the morning, almost regardless of where they're going. So yeah, there's probably some added cost because there's a few extra miles, but it's not that significant.
They don't have as many, you know.
Right, and there aren't as many students.
All right, any further questions? All right. Well, thank you for your presentation.
Okay.
All those in favor of recommended to council? Opposed? Unanimous vote? All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right.
Have a good night and good
Yeah.
luck with the rest of your budget.
Oh, thank you.
I served on finance committee in the town that I live in,
Oh, yeah.
which I had to give up when I took this job because the exact time I have to be doing all these presentations is when I would need to
Yeah.
be sitting on finance committee, so
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't do both.
There you go. Yeah, I bet that would make it tough. So, all right.
Thank you
Thank
again
you.
and good night.
Thank you so much.
So is this your bag? Or that's not your bag?
No, mine's right here.
That's yours.
Just making sure I'm not leaving anything.
All right. Next budget. Review the fiscal year 2023 Health Department budget in the amount of $666,975. Entertain a motion to vote to submit to council as presented. Is there a motion?
Sorry.
So we have a motion by Council Marquetti. Andy?
There are some wood sheets in there.
Yeah.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Made some changes to the budget this year, nothing ridiculously significant. But I'd like to go through the budget quickly, point out the changes and the logic behind the changes. So we're in budget 1512, section 51, 1000. That's basically and I can get into detail with it if you want, but generally speaking, that all of the increase in that whole section are related to the 2% COLA and a step increase for the inspector. I do want to point out that the inspector's position is paid 60% by CDBG budget and only 35% out of the town budget. And also, the director and the admin's salaries are both supplemented by Casella in the amount of $8,000 each. So that takes it out of the town of Southbridge funding. Section 11, 511, 700. Same logic behind the whole thing. These are my part-time salaries. These are affected by or increased by I believe it's Hector's last step, my curbside monitor's last step. So his step is in there, and the 2% COLA, and the landfill monitor slash recycling coordinator is a 2% COLA. Want to point out, both of these positions are 100% funded by Casella and or a special fund. There is a fund that was generated in the, it was either in the contract or in the site assignment that established penalties on the landfill that would get put into a fund that had to be used for recycling efforts. So these two positions are paid for out of that budget line item, which again is a dedicated fund, must be used for recycling efforts. Or in the case of Miss Anna, when she is doing review of paperwork for the landfill, doing tours of the landfill with Casella to review their punch lists and stuff like that, she is getting reimbursed directly from Casella for that. Nothing in those two line items comes out of the town of Southbridge funds.
How much longer are those funds available for?
I believe we have 100 and something thousand in those funds, so once those funds are exhausted, I will have to relook at these two jobs and see if we need to fund them within the town or if we're in a position where we can.
There's more than that.
There's more than that. So there's several more years in those two funds. I am keeping Miss Anna on, not just this year, but depending on where we are with the trash contract next year. One, because there's still a ton of closure materials that have to be reviewed and determined if they're all accurate and if the town is comfortable with it. And also, as we move towards a trash contract, her attention will be diverted from the landfill more towards the RFP and writing the contract and initially instituting the contract. So if indeed the town ends up going in that direction, I know that's the direction that the council voted. So-
Quick question.
Please.
For the accounts up here for salaries that do have funds coming from Casella, is that accounted in these figures here?
Well, what do you mean, explain?
Well, like the 101,322 in yours, does that include the 8,000 or does that
It does.
exclude
It does. It's all included. You would subtract it out. So the town's obligation to my salary is 93,000. The 101 minus the 8.
That's what, okay. And as far as the health inspector, what's the plans for that vacant job?
That job, we started advertising as soon as that job went vacant. Oh, wait a minute, the health inspector job. The health inspector job is not vacant.
The one
The
that's
part-time
listed here-
one.
The one that's listed here is being vacant, there's nobody in it, gone.
The CDBG.
No, there's no, the vacant one is on the building side.
Oh, the
Which
building.
are, okay.
So the building side, when we started advertising, off topic, but we started advertising right away for that. And we have just not found a candidate that, the number of applicants we get is minimal. We've run it 3 times and we're getting 2 applicants. We have one right now that we're gonna be interviewing, hopefully soon. I gotta get with Allison. And we're gonna set up an interview and talk to Mr. McCall and Miss Karen about that one. But, hopefully that one will get filled, but that's on the building side. Currently, the health inspector is a full-time inspector position, but it's not vacant. She is out on maternity leave right now. So we're having a great time in her absence with the extra burden, but we're expecting her back in March, April, May, June.
So let me ask,
Please.
Karen, on this, you have health inspector salary on that above line item that we're talking about, and it's looks like the town manager's recommendation was negative.
Yeah.
Is that just because of the funding mechanism?
That's the funding, so the salary is listed up above at 58,713. 35,228 is paid from CDBG. So it's showing the gross and then subtracting out what's not paid from the general fund.
But is this minus 35,000 also subtracted from the total budget at the end?
That's correct.
So my question is, the $8,000 that you and Maritza are getting from the landfill, from Casella, is that from this special fund that you're talking about that is paying for?
No, that is directly paid to the town to cover what is assumed we would be putting our efforts into for the landfill activities.
So now that the landfill is closed, how long will that last?
The landfill activities are still going on until it is closed and the DEP has accepted final closure. So as long as that's going on, we expect it's probably going to be within 2023. So we're gonna have to reanalyze that 8,000 and see if that is for the life of the contract or if it's for the life of the landfill. So we're gonna have to revisit that, but I think it's for the life of the landfill. It's reimbursed because of what we are assumed to be committing to, the time we're assumed to be committing to the landfill.
Good luck with that.
Welcome to my nightmare.
Any other questions? You're all set?
For something.
Okay.
Right, so, next section is longevity pay. I have 2 employees, one who is over 20 years. I'd like to put a kudos out to Miss Anna for staying with the town for 20 years, staying with a single employer for 20 years. Miss Anna is, when the landfill first closed their doors to receiving trash, Miss Anna's hours went down to 60%. The $900 reflects $1,500 times 0.6. The longevity pay is prorated to her hours. The second one is second kudos out to Miss Portalatin, Miss Maritza. She reached 10 years this past year, I believe it was this past year.
16.
16.
16 years.
16 years.
Yeah.
Darn. Again, she showed great dedication to the town, and I just want to, for both of them, thank them for their dedicated hours to the town. But those are per the personnel rules.
Yep. Okay.
Purchase of services, $350,000. It goes to Casella for the cost of the curbside pickup. Casella then, through the contract, reimburses it to the town, so the net dollars is $0 to the town.
Okay.
It goes out, it comes back in the other door. We have within our fleet, next section is motor vehicles. We have within our fleet a 2006 Trailblazer. 2006 makes that car 17 years old. I have promised the council and every subcommittee I've met that I will run these vehicles to death if I can keep them alive, rather than spend 30 to 40,000 for a new vehicle. So because it's 17 years old, anticipating 17 years old maintenance, I am just asking that that line item be increased to 4,000 from 3,000.
That's fair.
That's fair. Yeah, with the cost of inflation, I don't have a problem with that.
We're actually going to be coming to the board to do a transfer because there's a repair that
Okay.
exceeded the 3,000 this year. Gear and uniforms. This is for gloves, hard hats, boots for when Miss Anna walks up into the landfill. There is a requirement for steel toe, steel shank.
Okay.
In 2019, this was a $1,000 line item. We cut that because of the closing of the landfill. There is less wear and tear on our equipment, so we did cut that between then and now to 500.
Okay.
Special services. Special services is an account we use for any contracted services. When we ask Ty and Bond to do a review of something for us, comes out of that. Our public health nursing comes out of that. If we need to board and secure buildings, comes out of that. This item was increased in 2020, I believe, when we moved the money from miscellaneous supplies into it. It was decreased back to the 40,000. Although we are doing more boarding and securing, we're using tie and bond less. So we're asking for level fund that, because we have, as Gus has pointed out to me recently, we have an issue going on Main Street that is going to require us to clean up because the owners are not around here. We just cleaned up Hamilton Street property because the owner had died, and there was. So we are getting into cleanups and boarding and securing. There's one that was on the internet with people breaking into it. We have boarded it 3 times. It's just ridiculous, and the owner is in a nursing home somewhere that I have no clue of. So we end up doing the work. We do get it back eventually if the properties sell because everything we do, we put a lien on it. But the 40,000 I am asking to keep there because we are getting involved in a lot of boarding and securing and stuff like that.
Andy, when it comes to public health nursing, are we getting anything from that Webster multi-town contract that the council had approved a couple of months back?
I
don't know what it
just-
was now, but-
We just received some software to do some housing inspections and food inspections, and they have another platform for swimming pool inspections. We are working with our IS company and their IS company because we're not using it yet because we have it on the iPads. We got free iPads out of it. It's on the iPads, but we can't get it on ours due to something in the security system. So we're trying to work together to get it on ours so that we can sync them up. Once we do that, we'll be doing the inspections on iPads. The nurses, we spent a ton of money in November, December, and January on 4 nurses that we were using to do COVID tracing. We are no longer paying our nurses. Those are getting paid through that shared services. So we are starting to get our services from that. Very happy with what we're getting so far. And we're going to be using those COVID traces quite a bit. As the council is aware, I've been sending updates. It looks like we are starting to climb again. So what we would have invested in those nurses to do contact tracing is now going to be free to us.
Okay. Are we gonna get the same kind of coverage though, that we were getting?
I believe we will. The state said we don't have to follow every case, but I'm sending every case. If I'm gonna follow somebody over 60, I might as well follow everybody as long as I have the resources for it. So I believe we will get similar coverage. They are at the rate that we're getting them, 3 and 4 a day, 2 nurses, they're handling it. Webster's getting 3 and 4 a day, but the other towns that are involved are Dudley, 0 to 1 a day, 2 a day maybe. Charlton, no, Charlton's not involved. It's Dudley, Oxford, Webster, and us. So right now, we'll get definitely the same service because of the number of, we will also be able to tap these ladies if they find themselves bored. We'll be able to tap them to help us plan flu clinics and other healthful benefit events. So once it calms down again, we'll start talking about that with them. Testing and evaluations. This is something that it was actually pushed by 2, 3, maybe 4 generations of council. They wanted to make sure that Casella's labs and Casella's contractors were accurate. So this is for third-party monitoring of the well testing and the surface water testing. Anna and I sat down and beat this one up a lot this year. We are proposing to go down to once a year, or maybe periodically twice a year, but mostly once a year in these checks, because one, the landfill's closed and the source of contamination should be somewhat contained with the cap and everything. And 2, historically, our third-party testing has shown that their tests and our tests are spot on. So we still want to keep it in place, but we are comfortable reducing it by once a year. So we will be down to once a year doing the third-party testing, if the council and the subcommittee are comfortable with that.
I personally don't think it's necessary, but you know, that,
Yeah, I mean.
If the council
I mean,
says no, then we'll-
So you're saying that, because I've been here 4 years,
Yep.
I've never heard of any issue about water testing.
Nope.
And I gotta believe that they have to report to the state, right? Which either company does it, right? Casella's?
Casella's,
They must
Sanborn
report to the state, right?
Yep.
So there's quality control in that.
The state reviews it. The reason the state doesn't do a second test. The reason we were
No,
doing
but what
it,
I'm saying is that somebody reports to the state on this,
yes,
right?
all reports go to the state.
right? Whether it's the Casella lab, right?
Yep.
That's what we're talking about, right? Casella lab or the town's independent, right? So Casella does a test.
Yep.
They say this is our water sampling test from the town of Southbridge. They fire that off to the state, and the state says, "Okay, we believe that you know it's Casella. Southbridge is not the only town that does a landfill in the state, right? For Casella, There's gonna be others, right?
Casella's, this is the only one Casella runs.
In the
into.
state,
Yeah.
But they were running Holyoke.
but they must still report for that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Oh,
what
the
I'm saying,
report-
there's other reports in the state that,
I will not lose sleep if this goes away. This was something that it was under the jurisdiction of back when Denise was chair. And they said, we want additional, and it wasn't her, I don't remember who it was, but they said, we want additional eyes on Casella.
so
And I
you
said, "We
have
can do it."
historical data that says over the last, how many years?
I'm gonna say 7 to 8, 6 to 7 anyhow.
There has never been an issue with this.
No, it's accurate. That's why I'm willing to cut it down and I'm willing to cut it out.
I would say cut it off.
I would say cut it out. I mean, that's,
I see. I'm tempted to be. I look at the amount and I'm like, oh, we get a third dump party. I'd like to see it through till we're finalized and everything's closed
But-
off. That's just my personal take. We've been doing it. Why not continue it till everything's finalized, capped off, sealed?
well, because you're gonna have to do, because they're gonna have to test water for how long? Forever?
Next 30 years.
Right.
Their obligation to the landfill is
So
30
we're gonna
years.
do it for the next 30 years? I mean,
No.
that's what I'm saying. I mean, if we have historical data that says there's not an issue,
If there's a comfort level in going through final closure, I do believe this will be the last year. Final closure will happen this year.
Okay.
So if there's a comfort level in doing this through the final closure, I'm willing to keep it on, I'm willing to
so
eliminate
how many
it.
times a year do they test?
We're doing it 4 times. 2 years ago, we cut down to twice a year.
And how often-
Casella tests 4 times a year.
They test 4 times.
Yep. 1 well test, 1 surface water test. We were doing a third party on each of them initially. We cut it down to twice a year, I think 2 years ago. And we're just we're really trying to phase it out.
So do they know which test you might randomly select to test? Do a second test?
You're not really testing.
That would ruin random, wouldn't it? No, we just tell them, make sure you pick one of them.
Right, that's what I'm saying. They don't just, right, they just.
Right, it's a.
So
it's a
throughout
random
doesn't matter which of the 4 tests,
Correct.
they just do a random sample for the town. I guess I would be willing to go 1 more year and just say, hey, but I think it should seriously be considered for next year.
Once the landfill's closed, if this board is comfortable with it, if the council's comfortable with it, I'll eliminate, I won't even put
You
it in
know,
the budget
and
next
I
year.
would say just bring the data with you when you come to council that says, these are just, we did over this period of time, from this year to this
Oh,
year.
yep, okay.
We did this number of tests,
Yep,
and over that 7-year period, there were 25 tests, and there was never a discrepancy in any of the tests.
Yep.
And your recommendation next year is to eliminate it.
that I can do.
I think that would be more comfort level for the rest of the council and the community, that you have that documentation with you
Mm-hmm.
to the council.
Yeah.
Yep,
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. If I could follow up with that.
Councilor Smith?
One question that I have about this, about testing, is that whatever happened to several months ago, was it, Steve Gregoire brought up an issue with well testing and possible well contamination. Whatever happened to that?
the issue was a turbulence in his well, his turbidity in his well.
Right.
And he was wondering if that was generated from the activity at the landfill.
Right.
The geologists and the sampling, first off, if there was issue created by the well drilled at the landfill, the only things we found in the well in that particular well at the time that his turbulence went up, his turbidity went up, was chloramines. And chloramines are used in drilling the well, in sanitizing the well initially. We haven't found any of the 1,1 trichlor in that one. It was a clean well. So even if the water is flowing, and the argument is still from all the geologists that it's flowing in the other direction, but even if the water was affected by that particular well was determined not to have any contaminants of reportable levels.
All right. And then the rest are, what, you have advertising?
Yeah, they're all like 0.
And then 0%. So just what's up with the advertising? You have an increase of,
I have a decrease
Oh,
of $11. I cleaned
oh,
it
that's
up.
a D.
I just cleaned it up.
glasses, I can't.
Here, mine's were 175s.
Yeah, conference,
No, these are progressive, so, huh?
Oh.
conference and meetings, you think you'll be going to that many conference and meetings?
We actually didn't expect that we would be going to that many this year, and we've pretty much exhausted that because my swimming pool ran out this year and my food, I know my food is running out next year, so I'll be
What do you
going to
mean by
that.
food?
Oh, I'm sorry. I have to get certified in swimming pools. I need to get certified in Title V, food, service.
So you have to go to conferences and training for
Yes.
that?
Also, my RS, I have to maintain certain CEUs for that.
RS.
Registered sanitarian. Miss Emily came on just over a year ago.
Yeah.
Actually, just shy of a year now. I think she hits a year pretty soon. We want to get her, we sent her out for lead class. She's lead determinated now. We are hopefully going to get her out to a Title V class this year. So in order to bring her up to where she should be and to maintain what I have, I anticipate that we will be very close to exhausting that this
So
year.
that's what you have under conference and meetings?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, that's,
We're done with that one.
oh no, he's reading.
Oh, I see.
All right. Any other questions on the health department? Okay. Do you have something else?
Just of the 666,975, 482,000 of that comes from dedicated. I'm sorry, not 482 because you took out the 35,000. 447 of it comes from dedicated funds outside of the town's funding. So we are just over for the total budget for all we get out of this budget. The town is funding just over 200,000 of it.
All right. I guess from my perspective is that we have to start developing a plan that once some of those dedicated monies come apart. Obviously, curbside collection is the biggest part, at
Yep.
the 350, but those other positions, and take a look at how, if we're gonna maintain the health and safety. On a side and I know we don't do blighted buildings in this thing, and
No,
I
that's fine.
don't understand why.
Board of Health has.
It goes under different things, but just a quick question. I know it's not budget related, but
Yep.
South Street, what happened with it?
195 South Street, we are, for whatever reason, cannot get National Grid to sign off that there's no gas to the building.
Oh, okay.
I know there's an oil tank in there, but in order to demo a building, you have to get
So
National
that's
Grid.
what the holdup is?
That is
Because
literally
I saw
it.
some of the construction, I was just wondering. 'cause I
Yeah,
drive
they've done
by it
this.
every day.
They've done the asbestos test. They've done the asbestos removal. We are literally waiting for National Grid. That's the only thing we're waiting on.
Okay. Any questions? You have any questions?
No, it's just kind of catching up.
Okay.
I'm sorry for the delay.
Oh, that's okay.
My only question is, I know that some of these positions are paid for by Casella, but eventually they're gonna have to go away, so.
Yes, that's what.
That's what we just talked
Joe
about.
just alluded to is I've got to stop planning on
Right.
deciding if they go away
And
or if
it's
we
not
have to
just-
ultimately
They
fund
are
it.
getting paid by Casella, but Casella's not paying everything, they're just paying their salary. So there are other things that you have to consider that we are paying for, so.
Yep.
And these are supposed to be temporary positions, and that's what happens a lot. The landfill monitor was a temporary position until the landfill was closed.
Yep.
And then it was supposed to end, so,
Correct, but the landfill closure continues, so that position goes till the closure.
it's closed.
It's not closed until the state says it's closed.
I could technically argue that it's not closed.
Well, there's no one going up there, right?
No, but the amount of paperwork that is coming in that needs to be reviewed, the amount of just oversight of the closure, it's insane.
I don't think they're gonna try and open it again, do you?
I do not believe that's going to be an option. If they had stayed in operation, I think it would have been economically feasible. But now to what's the word when you first, to reset everything up again, bring all the equipment back in, I think it would overshadow the cost or the value.
Any other questions?
No,
Any other questions? All right.
you want me to vote on this and then he can take over?
Sure, if you want to do that since you participated.
Makes sense.
All right. All in favor of recommending the council? Opposed? All right. Yes. So just have that information for next year.
I will.
I won't be here to follow up on it, but I'm sure
I
Councilor
got
Kenny will be.
this
You don't know.
nightmare that you'll be in the audience saying, "Wait a minute, I asked for." Thank you, I appreciate this.
Okay, no problem. Thank you. All right, next. Oh, this was yours for last month. Okay. I say you could come up?
You said next, sir.
Did I say next?
You did, you did.
Next?
I heard
I
that.
heard next as well.
So we have the community center budget next? No.
Mine takes 5 minutes.
Unclassified too while you're
What's
here.
that?
That's
So
what
we
I was
probably
gonna
should do
suggest
his
that.
unclassified too while he's
No,
here.
we're gonna make him wait.
You can go back and sit.
This is on record, isn't it?
That's all right, that's all right.
You got the evidence.
All right, so we have, review the fiscal year 2023 veterans budget in the amount of $74,315. Entertain a motion to vote to submit to council as presented.
So moved.
Second, Mr. Ty? You're gonna second that?
Sure.
Okay. All right. Mr. Roberts, how are you this evening?
Very good, very
All
good.
right.
All right, so basically, salary and wages is pretty much the only change in the budget, other than we'll get the unclassified. And it's just a COLA change for the main salary from 68,351 to 71,986. And then the Graves registration officer went from 1449 to 1478. Same COLA.
Is that a step too?
Yes.
It's gotta be a step
yes,
too, right?
it's-
So
it's-
step
Yes,
and
he's going to the final step, I believe, step 5 and the COLA.
Okay,
Correct.
that makes sense. Because nobody's getting a 5% raise, Mr. Roberts. I don't care how good you are.
Well, didn't that incorporate starting March 18th, so it just rolled into the COLA for the 2023? I'm maxed out now.
Yeah, probably.
That's what I
Yeah,
think
it's because of the fiscal year change.
Right,
that's
right,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so then to
I'm
office,
only kidding.
office supplies. No change in office supplies for the last couple of years. 200 is good. Mileage, haven't been able to do anything with COVID as far as traveling for training and what have you. However, that's changing this year, so we'll see. And already the conference and meetings, 300. We have scheduled training this October, and they're already saying it's going to be like $400 something, but it's not a big deal.
For what conference meeting?
Their annual DVS, Department of Veteran Services training, they do every October. October and June, but they're moving one of them to hopefully forever virtual, but one of them's down at the Cape. And I'm trying to think of the hotel, but it's like 150 at night, and it's 3 days, 3 nights. So, and that doesn't include the cost of food. So they just sent that to us a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. but
As
I'm
far
sure
as the
the
schedule, it's not.
Cost of inflation.
Yeah, exactly. But I'll get the exact numbers there, and we can talk about that after or whatever when the numbers come out as far as what we might need moving forward. But there's other monies that doesn't get used that I could probably move it over to if I needed to. So.
Keith, I was curious, does the mileage in our budget cover your travel to Oxford and the other towns that we serve?
I don't claim any mileage. It's not that big a deal. I talked about this, I think, last budget. It's not a big deal. So, and if I wanted to do it, I'm sure $150 would cover my travel. Mainly it's Charlton that I go to. I'm covered down in Auburn now because of the death of Lincoln Barber, and I do most of that as much as I can. Most of the towns, as far as Oxford and Auburn, I've had to take over Oxford for a while too when a guy had left and there was a vacancy for like 5 months. The towns work very well with me. They'll scan things in, send them to me. I have access to everything that's in the Oxford office and the Auburn office from my location here in Southbridge. The only difference would be if I had to meet a veteran personally, and those two towns have a lot of elders, so I have done that in the past, or when needed, and that's not a big deal. I have no problem with that.
So, explain this. So Auburn and Oxford, you're covering as a.
I'm
is
the
it an
director,
agreement?
district director, correct.
Okay. And we had that in the agreement, right?
Correct.
Don't we have
An IMA.
IMA, right, with that?
Yeah.
We did that
Yes,
a couple
and
of years
they
ago.
reimburse us as well.
Right.
Part
Part of that
of the
salary.
salary.
Part of that salary is like 16 and some change comes from Charlton, 8 and some change comes from each of the
Oh,
other
to
two
this
towns.
one, right?
Correct.
That's right,
I
yeah.
probably should have put that in there.
The IMA,
Yeah, so make sure you reflect that in the budget so that it shows that we have that additional.
Right.
the 28th of next
So
week.
Oxford and who?
Charlton
Charlton
Auburn.
and Auburn.
they all give us reimbursement.
Correct.
Oxford
Correct.
and Auburn, right? Only plus for the record, because people will listen to this if we're
I
sending people,
Oh, of course.
that it was an IMA and they do reimburse you
Right.
on that.
Yep.
So even though you're a full-time employee, it's part of it is here
Right.
and so much.
I
for
cover
those
Charlton full time as well as Southbridge, but Auburn and Oxford have a part time VSO, a veteran service officer that works there, for, certain
So
hours.
you're
But
the director of that, right?
correct. The South
Because otherwise
Central-
they would have to have a full-time. I remember the whole conversation that we
Exactly.
had of it because of the
So
population.
it's all
and
based on
that.
population, over
Yeah.
12,000, they do so many, but then if you add towns in, and that's what the IMA comes in, as far as the towns agreeing, our meeting is the 28th of next week. We're just gonna sit down with all of the town managers, we've already had a preliminary one, the Auburn town manager is putting it, the actual agreement together for signatures, I believe Thursday, and we're all getting
Oh, is it a
together.
renewal for the
To
IMA?
renew, yeah, it's due now the end of June,
Okay.
it's a 2-year agreement.
Right, so that'll have to come here too.
So when I came on, it had just been approved.
Yeah, that's right. You've been here 2 years already.
2 years
Time flies.
as of last month.
Did you have a kind of question? Okay.
The only other line item was dues and subscriptions. I belong to 2 organizations, the Massachusetts Veterans Association and Worcester County, and that covers the dues. And I get a yearly book with everything you need to know, like updates and changes to VA stuff and the Department of Veteran Services.
So let me ask you this. So we just had a conversation about conference and meetings. You have to go to that, right? You're the director. Do the other towns contribute to those type of funds so that you could possibly get funded from them?
Well, there's a VSO in each one of the other towns.
Okay.
Charlton has the district executive secretary. They send her.
Okay.
She's and there is a line item for her to be able to attend with myself. This hasn't happened since I've been on. COVID's been in existence and it stopped everything. But she was going with Mike when he was here. So I mean, she's on
No, I'm
board.
just wondering since you do that for the part-time for the other two
Yeah,
towns.
I don't have anything to do with the Auburn and the Oxford individuals. I wouldn't take it from them. I would want them to have that.
Okay, because they go separate.
Right. They're not mandated because they're part-timers, but as the
The opportunity.
director of the district, I would like them to go. It's a learning experience, and I take every learning experience I can possibly get.
So,
Being so new.
you do Southbridge and Charlton
Yep.
as the
I cover both of those personally.
personally, and with the executive secretary coming out of Charlton.
Correct. And
And
she
then-
helps me with anything I would ask her to do, administrative wise for Charlton and Southbridge. Oxford and Auburn cover their own, according to the IMA.
And you're just the supervisor of those two,
Well,
more or less.
I'm covering Auburn right now, and when
Because the
Oxford
person-
needed, I covered them. Yeah, I just sat with the town manager, and we did interviews all last week and hired a guy for Auburn, starting next month.
Any other questions?
That's it for that. That's under the actual veterans
Yeah.
budget.
All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous?
There are 2 items if you want to, we'll move into the
Hold
next,
on, I just did
agenda 9, I think it is.
So review the fiscal year 2023 unclassified budget in the amount of $138,200,000 and entertain a motion to vote to submit to council as presented.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. That would be at the end, the last, I think, one.
1945.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
the first item is basically for supplies and materials to maintain the veterans memorials within the town. And this is an amount that is approved, has been approved in the past, and it goes to the Veterans Council of Southbridge to maintain the memorials. And that was agreed upon before I came on. I just manage it as far as I'm the treasurer of it actually, but once we provide all the receipts, audits, what have you, it gets submitted to town for approval. They get I get the check and I hand it over to the council to continue maintenance. Now in the past, it's been $2,700 since I've been here, and like I said, it's been that way the whole time since that's been the case. Last 2 audits, 2 years, which were approved. What we submitted was 1 second. Basically, what I want to explain is I'm asking for an increase. It's the only thing I'm asking for an increase for, of $500 to go from $2,700 to $3,200. And the reason, well, I find it. The last 2 years have been over $4,000. I've approved audits for each one of the last 2 years I was here. And as of this year, we're up to 21 and some change, and we still have $2,165 through about 2 days ago, and we still haven't even purchased the flags and everything we need to do for the activities for Memorial Day. And this year we're planning a parade. We're doing something at the conference center after the parade for all the veterans. So that's not even included in there. So we're going to well exceed that $2,700 again, and I'm sure the $3,200 too. But I'm just asking for a small increase at this time, just because we've been over it for the last 2 years, and this will be the third year in a row that we're definitely going to be over it.
I can find it done. That's fine. And veterans benefits are the same?
The veterans benefits are the same. That's something that goes up and down every year. Sometimes it's lower, sometimes it's going to be higher. So rather than messing with the budget, it's been approved, and that's the number it's been since I've been here. But you never know. We could get 5 new veterans on, next week, and then burials is a big thing. And when I first was on 2 years ago, they averaged like 3,000. Now they're over 5,000. So the state approves it, but will only give up to 4,000. But all that money that goes in this line, and basically, if I do my job properly, the town gets 75% of that back.
Of the 135?
Of whatever is put out from the town. Yes.
So this is
So if we
this
use
is
all
the
of it,
line item.
Yep.
You use 135. You document everything.
Correct.
You get
The I's, cross the
75%
T's,
back.
get approved by Karen, and if I do all that right, the Department of Veteran Services gives quarterly checks back to the town.
Okay. So essentially, yeah. So I don't have a problem supporting veterans. So I mean,
Thank you.
any further questions on that?
No questions.
No questions. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous? All right.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
I actually got 4 ready to go right now. I just don't want to give them to you while we're doing all this.
Yeah,
But I'll give them to you whenever.
yeah, send them
I'm
over.
ready.
Yep.
And they're good, so
Sounds
shouldn't be
good.
no issue. All right.
Thanks, Keith.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Next stop.
Next
Hi,
up.
Pat.
Hi, Pat.
It's good to see you.
Oh, it's good to be seen.
All right.
Happy to be back.
Happy to have you back.
Been a long couple months.
You feeling okay? You feeling good?
I'm still in some pain, still doing the PT, but yeah, I'm doing much better, thank you.
That's good. I'm glad.
I just gotta
That's all right. Let me know when you're ready.
somehow where'd I go? Okay, so this one is review the fiscal year 2023 community center budget in the amount of $49,352 and entertain a motion to submit to council as presented. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
So, salaries, first of all, is, myself, town pays 60% of my salary, and the formula grant from the state to the Council on Aging pays 40% of my salary. And that is documented here in the budget. And then Earl, our janitor, none of his salary comes from the town. Half is paid through the formula grant from the Council on Aging, and the other 50% is from a special account from our rentals of the community center. The total salary from the town is $32,062. And most of the rest of my budget is pretty much even. Water sewer went up 4%. Then I asked for a 4% increase in the data processing line item, but I took that 4% from the janitor supplies because we don't ever spend all of that.
Yeah.
So that kind of balanced that out. And therefore, my budget really only went up for salaries, due to step increases and the COLA.
Are you concerned about inflation when it comes to energy costs?
I am a little bit, but, Michael was handling that, right? If there was, I forget what he said. That happened right when I fell. Like, I got an email right when I fell, and I don't know if I was supposed to
So
increase
there's no
that
increase
again.
in that. I was just wondering
Yeah.
why.
I was, when we had our meeting, this was what we decided on, and then after that, there was a discussion about across the board for the town or something going up, but he didn't
Yeah,
document
not the
anything in here.
electricity and the natural gas,
Okay,
right, which she doesn't have any in here.
Okay. It's just that would be the only thing I have in the back of my mind because I'm seeing increases. I'm sure the town is seeing huge increases right now, so that's the only thing.
I mean, as of this year, I'm well within this
Okay.
amount.
How much under are you usually?
Well, I
Right.
can't really say. Last year I was way over because of
COVID.
the COVID
Yeah.
clinic. And we were running
That
like
doesn't accept
7 days a week, blah,
We
blah,
had the
blah, blah.
lease agreement with them.
Yeah, so it was kind of crazy.
Was it ever reimbursed by the Carrington, like the state or somebody?
Carrington paid for some of it, yeah. I don't know
Did
what
that-
those numbers were,
We
but
got rent from them that went into that rental
Okay.
revolving that we used
Rental
to
fund.
okay.
offset Earl's salary.
So
Yeah.
is that rental revolving, is that all one account for a town rental of the?
Correct, yes.
Do you have an amount in that, do you know?
That's left in the account?
You don't have to tell me right now, but that wasn't in the spreadsheet you spent today, right?
No,
Today
it
was
was
just
not.
expenditures.
No, I'm gonna say it's over 100,000, I believe.
I don't know what the numbers are in that.
But we did use some of that too when we did the RMV HVAC work.
Right, yeah.
I
Right,
don't
yeah.
know what the hell, yeah. That was before me.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Any questions? Wow, I think that was the easiest budget thing I've ever had. Thank you so much, everybody.
Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Yay.
Opposed? 3-0. Thank you, Pat.
Thank you, Pat.
Thank you.
Do you mind staying for a moment?
No, I don't.
What do we have next? That library next?
Library.
Hi, Myra.
Hello.
Review the fiscal year
Hi, everybody.
2023 library budget in the amount of $567,427. Entertain a motion to vote or
You're
submit
welcome.
to
I
council
thought
as
about
presented.
that
Are you on the library board?
No.
I am a library board.
Sorry.
All right, so you'll have to excuse from vote. So I'll have Council Marquetti step in, okay? And Council Ryan, okay?
Okay.
Just to make it legal, so there's no
Okay.
conflict of interest, okay? All right. So library.
Yes.
I'll
Good
move.
evening.
I'm just gonna,
everybody.
for the record, Mr. Dyer is recusing from discussion on the library because he is on the board at the library. So he won't participate in any votes, and I've asked Council Marquetti to step in his place to cast any votes, okay? All right, there we go.
And I'll make the motion to recommend the budget as presented.
Okay, and, thank you. All right. Myra?
So, thank you everybody for having me this evening, and I would like to say at the outset, I appreciate all the help I get from the accounting department. It really helps, you know, to have the oversight and the assistance, and I'm very appreciative of that. So, we stuck within the guidelines, and we were told level funded budget, so it's just the 2% COLA. for
Level
the-
service.
Level service, I'm sorry.
No, just for the record,
Yes,
level
not
service
funded,
as
yes.
opposed to level funded.
My
'cause-
mistake.
Okay.
I misspoke.
All right.
Thank you.
No.
You did a very good job.
Well,
Huh?
we shifted things around. We did, except for the COLA for the Schedule 1 and for the minimum wage people who got they're at their last increase now.
Right.
That really is the only like real increase. Everything else was managed within the budget and moved things around.
Okay.
So that's basically it. So the ask is 567,427. And just to know that we have a state requirement in order to meet the state aid,
Yeah.
and that is 557,027.
So we-
557,000.
7,027. So it means we're meeting our requirement.
That's the state, just so I can put it in the minutes.
Yep.
So that's the state requirement
For,
for funding?
yeah, it's called the MAR.
The what, Mar?
MAR, M-A-R.
MAR,
Municipal Appropriation.
Municipal
Requirement.
annual requirement, I think.
Thank you.
Does that
Is
sound
that
right?
different from the percentage increase every year that you're required to have?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
the average of the past 3 years plus 2.5% increase.
Okay.
So it's just to meet.
So, when we meet that requirement, we get reimbursed, or how does that work?
Yes, we become eligible for state aid. There are other requirements, like the director has to have an MLIS. There's certain staffing requirements, number of hours open. We have to be open 2 hours, 2 evenings a week, and have Saturday hours. So we meet all those requirements
Okay.
pretty easily, actually. So on the basis of that, we do get a reimbursement, and you probably want to know what the state aid
I
figure
do,
is.
yeah.
So I have it. It's $41,463.88. That was for FY22. Yeah. So and this has increased tremendously in the last couple of years, and I participated in the library legislative breakfast this year, and the ask is for an increase, $3 million increase, so that'll give us, obviously a follow-through increase, and it seems to be moving forward. So that figure most likely will increase, and it's something that we lobby for, because it really helps us to offset any unanticipated costs, and that's what we use it for, after the budget is set and stuff like that. But there could be something that might, like COVID,
COVID, yeah.
so we can kind of offset some of those unanticipated or building requirements.
Mhm.
And like this year, actually, I'll probably mention it later, but just as we're talking about how state aid is used, I will be using it to pay for the 2 HVAC units that are being replaced. But there's a 22-week gestation period on that, so
Yeah,
we
it's
probably
crazy
miss.
right now.
It's like 3 seasons before
Yeah.
we get. So hopefully we'll have it for next winter. But
That's the
it'll
hope.
be
Yeah, that's
coming
the
out
hope.
of state aid.
Out
And
of state aid.
yeah, so
Okay. What nights are you open?
Monday and Thursday, 9 until 8.
9 to
So I'm actually absent from my job tonight.
8. Monday and Thursday, yeah.
And we have a program.
What's your Saturday? hours?
Saturdays 9 until 1. So we have 50 hours a week during the academic year,
Yeah.
and then summer hours are 45 hours. So we meet the requirements. Due to the vacation and stuff like that, that's why we have to cut the hours back during the summer,
Mhm.
because we just are at bare bones
Yeah.
staffing.
And how about staffing wise? You doing well with staffing, or is it still
Well,
a challenge like everyone
to
else?
that end, I have to thank my colleagues from the HR department who have been sitting in on interviews starting today and for the next couple of days. We're replacing 2 vacancies. One is a 30-hour-a-week circulation position, and the other is a 37.5 technical services / circulation assistant position.
Mhm.
So, in other words, we're actually down 67.5 hours at the moment.
Okay.
And so you'll see, I think a vacancy on one, and the other one, her name is in, but she, after the budget was set, she went to a really good job at the Department of Justice. So
Well,
yeah,
can't
Wow.
fault them
Kinda
for
nice.
that, right?
yeah, so
No.
it's good. So, as I said, no new personnel were requested, and the 2% applies to Schedule 1 and this part of the Schedule 5 staff, and then the minimum wage to
Yep,
the
okay.
lower 2 levels.
Mm-hmm.
No retirements are planned. There's 3 of the Schedule 1 staff are on steps. That's the Adult Services Librarian,
Yep.
who's going to be on step 4. The Technical Services / Circulation Assistant will have, when that person is hired, will have a step, and so will the Circulation Assistant. Then the Schedule 5s are the minimum wage application. So this is the last year that the minimum wage, so we've been doing
Right.
it over, I think, 5-year period.
Mm-hmm.
So total salaries are 408,347. Longevity still applies to, this is the 51, 53
account. Longevity applies to 4 staff at the library, and that totals 3,934. So for utilities, in conversation with the finance director and the town manager and the assistant town manager, we talked about the utilities. Because there's still like an unevenness in our patronage and usage of like water and sewer and stuff like that, we left the figures at the same as last year, and with the possibility that they may need to be adjusted, but we actually think that this will cover adequately.
I like the fact that we have the previous fiscal years in this. That's
I know,
nice
it's
to see.
wonderful.
That's
As always, I'm always impressed with your budgets. Honestly, like they have always been thorough and really point to detail.
Thank you, Councillor
Thank you.
Ryan. If it isn't written down, I don't remember. That's why. So it's that. It's an aid. Accepting the fact that utilities are a little bit of a gamble, but we're doing our best on that. So then, here's where we start making some changes, and the changes, as I say, are met within the budget. So we've just moved things around, and with a view to maybe in a few, in the next fiscal year, maybe we have to put some money into those zeroed out accounts. Like one of them is like, for example, printing, and I know we can manage adequately for the next year without that. But the following year we won't, so there'll be that understanding. So repair and maintenance of building and grounds, which is the 5243 account, that's increased by $1,950, and that is made up from book processing. We've transferred out 1,000, mileage 150, and 300 from conferences. And the conferences and mileage is because we're using webinars, and like all the training now is really online. The only time we really use mileage and in person is for area library directors meetings, which is nice to have in person because we're colleagues and we tend to get together. So I feel that that's going to be a comfortable situation. So most or about half of that money is already earmarked for the repairs and maintenance of buildings and grounds, because we have like contracts and obligations, but there is some money left over for the unanticipated costs, and the unanticipated costs can but as I say, we do try to make it out of the state aid. Our goal is to avoid any like emergency charges and stuff like that, so we do all the maintenance as it happens. As it's pointed out, if something is pointed out, we do it. And so it makes for an easier situation. Right. And
but we do have planned maintenance on like the HVAC system, right? They must have the contract for somebody.
Oh yeah, twice a year we have
so that's built into the budgets, but.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Okay. But then, like that's only the
bare bones.
That's the start of the thing. Yeah. It's like it's so expensive.
No,
and actually HVAC is probably one of our biggest costs, I think, always.
Yeah.
It seems to be.
Yeah. And the elevator.
Yeah, well the elevator, just to give you a quick rundown on the elevator, there's a new regulation came in last October by the state, and our inspection was scheduled for November, so of course we didn't meet the state requirement, as I think the town hall elevator didn't meet it either. But as a result, they've had to do retrospective fabrication, and it's like they had an engineer from Florida. It was like a nightmare, but ours has since been done since the beginning of February. But it cost like $3,500, and that was something that we did not know last year at this time. So those are the kind of things that come up.
That's the good old state for you.
Yeah, but we are staying current, and we're waiting for re-inspection now at this stage. I've kept the leasing of the copier at the same figure. Programs, that program figure is for a movie license, and we've kept that at the same cost, and I'm hoping that they'll keep to it, but they do jump every year. But the last time I spoke to them, that's what they said, that will cover it for that year. Data processing we've increased by 700. It's not a lot of an increase given what's happening with cybersecurity and stuff like that, and we are making some major improvements at the library, and thanks to the trustees, we are currently, just to give you a little sidebar on this, the trustees are anticipating discussing at their next meeting the updating of the Piapi room and the reading room with smart TVs and the associated gizmos to make it like conference kind of style space. And I'm hoping that that'll go through. It's about a $15,000 ticket if it goes through in total. And if that's the case, you know, it'll make us it'll just up our game, so to speak. And we have kind of lost some of our edge in that respect. And then there's also the whole issue of like fibre and stuff like that, which we are involved in that conversation. It's probably not for this discussion here, but just to let you know, we're keeping a watching brief and we do want to be involved, and we are making some inroads on that with chatting to people and whatever. Okay, so it would have been nice to have more money for data processing is the point, but we were going to stick with this for now, and hopefully that'll cover us. And then we zeroed out the printing to accommodate the data processing account. Office supplies we have kept the same. Copier, printer, scanner, the materials, you know, the resources for that staying the same. Janitorial the same. Actually all these except for book processing, 5585, that we have decreased by 1,000, and we have used that to add to the repair and maintenance of the building, because we feel things are changing for us. Sometimes we can get our vendors to do some of the processing and the cost is absorbed at that level. So it's where we can, we try and save, believe me.
That doesn't affect our grants from the state, does it?
No, we once we meet that MAR figure that we talked about, and once we also provide 15% of the total appropriated municipal income, correct, Tammy?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Once we meet 15% of that for materials, then we're covered for state aid as well. There's a couple of markers that they require. So books and materials. The trustees have traditionally been providing around 40,000, give or take a little more sometimes, to go towards the books and materials account. It's now, the figure for 2023 is $85,114. In the budget there's 45,630. So I will be asking the trustees to provide the balance, which I think is, I haven't worked out, oh boy, it's about $40,000. I didn't actually do the figure, but maybe the trustees will maybe just pad it with 1,000 or something more, so that it's a little more generous than just the basic, but that will, the 85,114 will cover us. And as I say, in the budget, in the operating budget, there's 45,630 already. And without the trustees' contribution, we would not meet state aid. I mean, this is critical, and they do so willingly and from the interest from the trust funds. Okay, mileage we have decreased by $150 because we participate more in webinars and are not travelling. And conferences we have reduced by $300. And then dues are staying the same, maybe increased by $30. It's $950 is the figure. I think that's the same as it was.
Same.
Yeah. And then small capital items. We have a couple of projects coming up, and I have requested a small amount of money for that. We're looking at the fire panel to be replaced. We're also anticipating floor covering in the program room in the children's room. We've had a leak through the front stairs, the granite stairs, and we've had the leak repaired, but you know, the damage was done. It leaked a few times before we got to figuring out exactly where the leak was. And so the DPW has removed the floor covering, but now we need to replace it. And we're just keeping a watching brief at the moment to make sure that with spring rain, that we don't get a deluge and that we haven't mistaken the source of the leak. But I feel pretty comfortable that we are, so we will be replacing that as well. And that room is used during the summer, just so you know, for the food service, which we're starting back up again. We had a 2-year hiatus because of COVID, but we're working with the food services director, and it's a really very happy arrangement for us because, you know, it attracts some kids to come in at lunchtime. We can target programs at that time, and also it just provides us with maybe a small grant opportunity as well for participating. And I think
That's it for the budget, right?
yeah, we zeroed out the office equipment because we bought 2 printers in the last 2 years, and that kind of covers us for now. So I think that's my request.
Very reasonable request for such a jewel that we have in town.
Anything new on
Really?
the microfilm machine? That old microfilm machine that you have is kind of like shot. I was just wondering if there was anything new on that.
Well, we did have one sent. Are you talking about the one inside in the computer room, or are you talking about
just
an older
outside
one?
the computer room.
Oh yeah,
There's
that
another
no, that's in status quo. However, the one in the computer room we did send out and had it a factory update. Cost us about, I forget, maybe 4,000. I forget. It was last year we did it.
Oh, all right.
So we have that, and that is networked. So that is the big advantage. You can print, you can save to like a file or a USB or whatever.
I'll check it
Yeah.
out.
You gonna do some research?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, that's why I was glad that our users aren't precluded from the discussion
No.
tonight. Like Jim was sidelined.
He was sidelined, yes. He was sidelined. He was sidelined,
Chairman
but
Capora did not sideline me.
no.
Not
I follow the rules. No, I tell you, I use the website, which I got some old town reports from, and which I tell you, I learned a lot about Southbridge. I actually learned a lot about my family history
Yeah,
in
that's great.
town,
Yeah.
to the point where I found out that my great grandfather was on the board, the library board of trustees, before it became Jacob Edwards Library.
Oh, in the previous iteration?
Right before it became, the year before, he had been on years before that. So it was
Interesting.
quite interesting to find out that history that I had never known.
Yeah.
And I was just looking at looking at a Felix Gatherstone book that ended up leading me down this path of family
That's wonderful.
that I knew was from Southbridge, but had no idea of their involvement in town of Southbridge politics and
Yeah.
the library itself. I would have never known that he had been so involved in the library, and I think
That's great.
also the Southbridge Park, so like Dresser Street Field was something that he was chairman of the committee that built that. So I was and I learned it all from going to the library. So I was like, it was, but just from that website. So I certainly appreciate all the information. So I got to go down there a little bit more to.
Yeah, and if I can
to use
follow
it.
up just to let you know that was done through like a grant through the Digital Commonwealth.
Yeah, it's
And
just
it was all free.
Yeah.
And we have another booking made, which I don't know when it's going to happen, but we have the Hamilton Woolen Mills archive that is going to be digitized. Sorry. Yeah.
so. But with his microfilm thing, it would be nice to go down and pull old newspapers that maybe were from that period to see what was said.
Well,
and,
they have a whole stack of newspapers that would be nice if you could get those digitized.
But
The ones that are downstairs.
Yeah,
Those
because
are
they're
tough.
after 1923, we have to have publishers' permission. There's like a copyright thing.
Yeah.
But actually, the Southbridge Evening News, not the current editor, but I talked to previous editors, 2 of them, and they were okay about it.
Bunch of books.
Pardon?
Walter brought a whole bunch of books over to the library.
Mike Marchetti was involved as well, and Paul Zotos.
Oh, yeah?
They were
Yeah.
in the basement.
yeah, nice.
They came
So,
over on a pickup truck.
Unfortunately, we should have kept the books too. instead of just-
Very good. So, all in favor of recommended to full council? Opposed? And recused. All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that presentation. I appreciate it.
All right.
All right. Margaret, did you sign in?
Do you have a pen? Can I get a borrow, please? Thank you.
Huh?
Something on that corner.
All right.
That's all right. I just want to make sure because I'm just going to staple that to the minutes. So. All right. The next item for discussion is review of the fiscal year 2023 recreation budget in the amount of $71,228. Entertain a motion to vote to submit to council as presented. Do I have a
So
motion?
moved. Second.
Okay.
Community center.
Yeah, whatever.
Okay, Michael, you gotta sign.
You got it.
Who moved that?
I did.
Oh, it's okay, even part of something.
All right.
Hello.
Hello. How are you?
No complaints yet.
No complaints yet. Well,
Pretty late in the day, so
since you're the last,
Tell us about it.
since you're the last one for this evening, and you're brand new,
a little bit.
be prepared. Right? Karen? I didn't say that mean enough, did I? I didn't intimidate him enough.
Be nice.
You had to put a scowl on.
I had to put a scowl on. I can't do that. All right, what can we do for you, Mr. Brunel?
Yeah, I'll break down what I have for this year's budget request
Okay.
and kind of pull back from last year, but most of this hasn't really changed from the budget that I was playing with in my first year. The big thing is actually at the top, which is
So let's do this.
Yep.
Go through the rest of any changes that you have in the rest of the budget, and then we'll go back to that top line item. So
sounds good.
that's always the bigger discussion. So we'll go
If I'm not mistaken,
there's no
it's-
changes, right?
The only thing is the summer staff that I'll be hiring. They get the director.
Is that at the top?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as far as regular expenses, are there any questions from anybody on expenses?
No.
Okay. All right. So then let's work backwards. So you got the summer program staff.
Yes.
Okay.
They have the program staff, which will be they'll be supervised by a program director. The program staff will be getting $14.25, which is just the standard increase for the state's minimum wage. The director will be getting $18.28, which is just a 2% increase from last year.
Okay.
And yes, the definitely the most glaring part of the new budget is the salary increase for myself, which put me in full time.
Okay. All right. So I know there was a lot of counselors that advocated for that.
I appreciate
We've
it.
had that conversation at another meeting. So based on that, and personally, I don't have a problem. I just with it, as long as you can give us some sense of what your goals might be if we were to make it full time. I mean, what are we going to benefit from a full time recreation director?
Absolutely. So, I guess I would start off with saying at 19 hours, I'm very grateful for having the position that I have, but it does limit me. Within a 5-day work week, that's roughly less than 4 hours a day. And recreation, being my own department and being the sole person in the department, it includes a lot of networking and a lot of just collaboration with other departments, including mostly economic development, because there are a lot of parks and rail trails and a lot of big changes coming as far as recreation sites in town, and as well as working with the community center where I'm staffed and actually do pull off programs. Also, I'm working with DPW to make sure that the fields are maintained. So essentially being able to collaborate with them, get in with any of the citizens to talk about recreation, what they would like to see in town. And of course my summer program, the summer concerts, they do take up a lot of time. So I would, ideally being able to get full-time would make this a more full-fledged department in general. And I think it's kind of lacking that. In summertime, it really gets going with the summer program and the concerts. That honestly takes up more time than the allotted budget, the allotted time that I have in a work week.
Yeah.
And then I have to plan a season ahead because these things do take time. So currently I am looking at summer and, booking the summer concerts, making sure that the summer programs are going, and talking to HR to get those people hired. With that time, I actually cannot supervise staff that are working 20 hours a week when I'm only working 19, including summer concert series that overlap that, which are a minimum of 3 hours on the weekend. I do have a spring calendar that I can pass around. I shared last time, but that's about what I saw as the most convenient time for families and individuals to get together for recreation, which is Saturday mornings, 10 a.m. So I believe 8 weeks in spring, this is currently going on. There are trail walks at 10 a.m. There are arts and crafts, yoga. Depending on the week, you can come and show up. But those do take time, and those do carve up roughly 2 to 3 hours of my weekend, which leaves only 16 for office and all those other things. So,
As the recreation director, say it is full time.
yes,
All right. It's not just a Monday through Friday town hall hours, right?
not generally, no.
No.
I was
so-
going to say it would be nice to have that normalcy. Sorry to interrupt, but
Oh no, I want to understand.
But no, when I do get a call from someone and asking, well, when are you going to be in? It's kind of rough because, any given day or any given week, I might need to meet with DPW at a certain hour or another citizen that I've met with, or do a town do a town council meeting. So there are a lot of things that just fluctuate my hours throughout the week. So having a little bit of normalcy and being able to be in the office. But yes, it is a lot of
Well, no,
jumping up
my
and-
point is, right? Typically, you get a town hall employee or any employee that works for any agency, whether it's town or not. It's, well, I was hired Monday through Friday. These are my hours, and my duties are something that are outside of a normal office environment.
Yep.
So, to understand the expectation on both sides, as a counselor or on this end,
Yeah.
we say we hire a recreation director. Oh, but geez, he's only working Monday through Friday. Then it's, well, I need overtime, I need this, I need that. Do you understand what I mean?
Absolutely.
So I'm sure you'll work with the HR department to come up with all those reporting requirements and all that on the management side that I leave to the town side. But
Yep.
I guess the expectation is I don't want to hear that, hey, I'm not here or this, or it's overwhelming. You understand what I mean? Now I need an assistant.
Absolutely.
Now I need an assistant to the assistant because, hey, I scheduled this. You understand what I mean?
I would like to make this the best recreation department I can. Maybe in a few years down the road if I have such a robust department. But this has been just this department with COVID and having, I believe, 3 rec directors since 2019. A lot of people are just having trouble knowing that there is a rec department or there is recreation offered in their town so regularly. So getting it back to that would be huge.
Yeah.
But at this point, I don't see myself reaching for overtime or any of those, or needing those assistants or anything like that. I think where the department is now, or in my sight in the next couple of years, just having a few more hours to play with myself.
For instance, I believe the town of Southbridge has like 25 brand new mountain bikes. You're aware of that?
I am not, no.
25 mountain bikes with helmets and everything. And we're on a grant for the rec department that would be at your disposal. I think they're at the DPW. Brand new mountain bikes that were for a rec program for that. I think what was his name?
Probably Steve. He was a big biker from when I was.
Steve, right?
He was.
That never got used. That are available to the town.
I would love to.
So I mean, those are the type of things that would be nice to see
I would
used.
sign up for that.
Absolutely.
That sounds fun.
In fact, I think there was a trailer to house them or something, but I think the school department took possession of that. But,
Yes.
Anyway, Pat, did you have a
Yeah, I
question?
just wanted to say that in Michael's defense, for 19 hours, he's doing remarkable stuff. I mean, he's been with his spring program. He's really been putting in extra time between me being out and him covering building hours. He like Friday night. Now he has here tonight. Tomorrow night he has a movie night at the community center. He's got a Saturday program this weekend, and right there is, if you add it up, like 10 hours. So, you know, he really does manage his time well, but he also gives more than, you know, expected. So I just wanted to say that. I think that full time for him, he's a go-getter. He actually has done a lot with a little bit of hours that he has in the year that he's been here.
Well, I certainly see a need for it because I do believe that we need somebody not to manage the fields too. I mean, to say, I mean, we've talked about Morris Street Field and doing some upgrades and grant opportunities up there. So, you know, assisting with PEG to try to get some grant monies for that. That takes time.
Absolutely.
We have the park grant that's going to be doing
On
all
Henry
that.
Street.
I mean, so there's a lot of areas that we're investing in that do need oversight and to make sure, hey, you know, the thing that drives me nuts is like going to West Street Field and seeing a softball field that's all grass that you should have like the infield and somebody to work with other departments to make sure that
Absolutely.
it's set up. But that, you're right, it does take
It is,
time.
yeah, and it's delegating with DPW and all that
Yeah.
and such.
So, Councilman Kennedy?
I was gonna ask, basically the same thing you were asking, if there's any funds available to actually maintain the fields. Where is that gonna come in anywhere? Do we have that budgeted anywhere, even in DPW?
I believe that is within
I
DPW's.
don't see a lot of money in there for maintenance of fields in DPW. I see some funds in there, but I don't think it's nearly enough to maintain the fields.
I would agree with
That
you.
would be something that I think that needs
We
to
should
be
work
looked
on,
at.
yeah.
Yep.
The other thing is, I'm pretty sure that a lot of this recreation, couldn't it be funded through CDBG? I think it can. I recall looking at CDBG funding, and I could have swore it said that it could be used for recreation in a community. So I just think it's something we should take a look at. If we can grab some of that CDBG
Yep.
funds. There always seems like there's a certain amount left in her funds. It could go through that, go to this department.
And I think too, not only is the programming and the ability to work on these other programs, but with time you could explore grants and grant opportunities to write those grants.
Yes.
You know,
That would be a big
and
thing for me.
especially like in the winter time where you start looking at, okay, I have those indoor programs, but not the summer program and all that to say, hey, there's grants or
Absolutely.
other funding opportunities and all that.
Yeah. And if I could interrupt, that is a big thing of making this a full-time year thing because when I'm in the summer and I'm technically working more hours than I'm allotted, I don't have the time to plan for fall. And that causes fall programming to suffer.
Yeah.
And then I can plan for winter, but my assumption is I can do, of course, indoor, but COVID has its own control over that. And I do know recreation is more of a spring, summer, fall thing
Yeah.
than a winter. I would like to make it more holistic, but with that, it's harder to plan for the fall and stuff like that. When those
So do you see when you say networking opportunities like working with the Cops and Kids program,
absolutely.
the YMCA's and all that?
Yes, I would argue that I am currently at my best when I can.
But this gives you
partnering
more
with those.
time.
Exactly, and there are so many like the mountain bikes. I have to admit that was just something I haven't heard of. I
wouldn't expect you to know that.
No,
so.
but it's some people there are just and there are great nonprofits and other community organizers that just I've been hit upside the head and just hey how haven't you talked to them yet?
Yeah.
And it's just I am new and 19 hours is only so much, but I think with more hours I am able to collaborate and learn more about these opportunities and collaborators.
Well, quite honestly, the only reason I knew about the bikes is because the school department called us. They wanted us to declare them as surplus and sell them. And I said, why are we going to sell these bikes? We should keep them and find a use for them.
CC me on any of those
They're up at the school. No, I think they got moved down to the DPW. DPW has them, but they're brand new. I don't think they've ever been used.
I would love to.
What's
I
that?
did see some bikes when we went on
Yeah,
tour.
I think that, like I said, I think there's like
but I
25 of
questioned
them.
why
There
they
was
were
like
there.
$50,000 grant or something like that. It
And then I
was
could partner
crazy.
with the bike company in town and
Right.
see if they'd like to organize some.
He does a lot of rides and stuff.
That's
so-
it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, and I also have to say I can't do much of my job without the other organizers in town. There are the Trails Committee, the chess club. They're helping out a lot. So just there's a lot of people that are willing to step up and help make recreation as best as possible. But I think I just need that time to collaborate with them and sit down with them more.
Michael, how are recreation activities communicated to the citizens?
Facebook primarily. I try to get them out here as well at the front desk. And then with the summer program, I did put out flyers last year, but that ended up falling through with a lack of hiring.
Could we get? Is there any way possibly we can get use of that that big flashing sign for like a big event?
No,
No.
no, it's for emergency uses only.
And elections
How about
apparently.
the town
Well, no,
website?
yeah, because,
Yeah.
if town-
Yeah.
I do use the town website as well. My mistake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, cable access, do some programming.
Cable
and all
access
that.
as well. Yeah. See, I'm bad at even
Yeah.
explaining myself. Big Bunny was also a big one too. They put my movie on there.
Yeah,
on
great.
The little clicker.
No, the flashing sign, just so you know, the fire chief was here, we, at the PPP, and there was a conversation about that, and they don't wanna see the overuse of that sign, because people just turn off if it's an emergency, they just see it flashing all the time, they won't read it. So they do use it for the elections to say, hey, it's an election, we use it for COVID. But, because I think there was a group, I think the schools wanted to do it for registration or something like that, and the chief was like, no, we need to really limit the use of that, so. Yeah, which makes sense, because people do turn off once they. Council Steve?
I guess this is mostly through you to Karen. So, looking at the salary here, did you do any comparison for neighboring towns and what that, how that plays out?
Can, were you involved at all in doing this?
The recreation.
In recreation? I don't know. I know that I didn't do any looking around
I
at
mean-
other rates or anything.
We could conduct a salary survey and look at what other communities are doing if you would like.
I was just curious about that. Where did you come up with these figures?
Well, it just looks like it was the rate what you have and increase the
Is
number of
hourly rate,
hours.
and then it just.
Right.
It's just the increase in the number of hours, so it's the same rate, just number of hours.
Right.
Right, yeah.
So,
Because I'm supportive of it. I think it's great. I mean,
Yeah.
you've been doing a lot already. I know that you do far more than the times in Marshall County.
go ahead, Mr. Dyer.
Through you, with the transition potentially to full-time and recognizing that your work is not always the typical workday Monday through Friday, that it extends beyond that and it varies from week to week, do you think that with the transition to full-time that there would be certain designated office times that would become fairly regular for you?
That's my hope. Yeah. I can't see at the moment, but I mean, with even 19 hours, I try to make it my best if I don't have a crazy week. But if I call someone, I'm like, hey, I'm here from like 10 to 2. So it's like a good like 4-hour window of like the midday to get
So there'd be
content.
an increased number of those windows for you, hopefully.
Absolutely. Yeah. My hope is to just, just be here more often. The office hours are really whenever I get the chance. So I'd really like to have the time to really settle in and
Sure.
get all comfortable there. But a lot of it is just running around and networking with different people at this point. So.
I've been pretty clear since I've gotten involved that I think this needs to be a full-time position. It's not. I look at the risk benefit analysis, and I look at that number, and I'm like, the benefits to the town are far above that number we're paying. So this has been something that even when Steve was running it, it was in my mind, I'm like, we need to be doing more, we need to be providing more opportunity, in particular to kids in town, because we don't provide enough opportunity and recreation for kids in town. So I'm more than happy, 110% gonna support this.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Yes, all present. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.